your favorite mistake, Andy?
My favorite mistake was a circumstance in which I was an executive producer for famed anchor Lester Holt at NBC News, who just retired over the summer. So I was his executive producer, and this was the first time I had ever worked with him. I had worked on a talk show for MSNBC that got canceled. They reassigned me to do war coverage for the Iraq War. And they just threw me into it. I was scheduled, but I didn't really get trained. And being a talk show producer or executive producer, or being the executive producer of a 4-hour newscast are very different skill sets. So I sat in the control room and tried to watch people doing it. So I tried to train myself, essentially.
Yeah.
Amidst all of that, they only had a couple control rooms. So the team that was there for 4 hours before us would finish their shift. They would literally run out, and my team of 10 or 12 people in the control room, director, assistant director, technical director, teleprompter operator, we'd rush in, and we'd literally have the time of one commercial break to get everything ready for the next 4 hours.
Yeah.
Mark, as you can appreciate, that means we had reporters all over the world that we had to check in, make sure their audio and video worked. We had videotapes ready, scripts. It was chaotic, to say the least.
And at that time, you mean literally tapes.
So we had tapes ready, correct.
Yeah.
And so we rush in, we do all that. And again, I've never done this before. And in front of me is like a cockpit of switches and buttons and things to talk to the various people in the control room and around the world. And they're not listed. Somehow you had to intuit where the buttons were. So I'm sitting there as the executive producer, and frankly, I don't know what I'm doing. We sit down, the director calls us up, ready to go, counts us down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go, Lester. And Lester Holt, the esteemed NBC anchor, who was esteemed at that time and had an unbelievable career at NBC, starts reading the prompter. As I mentioned to you, Mark, I had sat in the week before for a few days trying to figure out how everything worked.
Yeah.
So Lester starts reading the teleprompter, and he's doing fine, but the story sounds eerily familiar to a story that I heard last week. And all of a sudden, over my left shoulder, I hear a young man, he was probably 23 years old, and then I look over and he puts his head in his hands, and he said, "I loaded the wrong teleprompter copy."
Wow.
That's last week's.
Yeah.
And Lester Holt now is reading last week's script.
He's still going.
And there's nothing you can do. You can't get in his ear. You can't get in the ear of an anchor while they're talking. You can do it.
Go, there's that earpiece and
We call it an IFB, but yeah, because if they're talking, they can't listen.
Yeah.
You can't get in his ear. So all you can do is say, "Go to break," which we did, but you can't explain to him what's happening or anything. So they yell, "Go to break."
like a real abrupt.
Oh, out of nowhere in the middle of a sentence. And he with aplomb, he says, "You know what? We're going to take a break. We'll be right back." It's a mess. For 4 hours now, or 3 hours and 57 minutes, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say to Lester Holt, who I've never met. This is my first time working with him, and he just went into the studio. I didn't even have a chance to shake his hand because we're frantically putting scripts together. At the end of the 4 hours, the rest of it went fine. I go to the back door as he's coming out of the studio, and I'm going to apologize for my mistake.
Now, before that, though, like during the commercial break, then somebody was talking in his ear and saying, "Hey, Lester, wrong script. We're going to regroup."
Yes,
He rolled with it. It probably wasn't the first time it had happened.
but for me, I had never worked with somebody like Lester Holt. He was the preeminent anchor at NBC News, and here I had humiliated him on the air. So I go back around, and I'm just like, I know he's going to scream and yell, probably fire me or have me fired. And I went up to him and I introduced myself. I said, "This is our first time working together, and I'm new at this. And I'm just so terribly sorry about what happened." And he looked at me, we shook hands, and he said, "Andy, this kind of thing does happen." But I remembered how Lester Holt handled it the rest of my life. This
Yeah.
is years ago. And I also remember, which is why I wrote the book, the myriad of times where I made a mistake or not,
Right.
and I got punished for it. And the bosses had no interest in listening or understanding. They were just interested in dictating and in some cases punishing.
Yeah. I'm glad the story about Lester Holt was a positive one. I'm glad he reacted in a way that wasn't focused on punishment.
I was loyal to Lester Holt. I would have done anything for him. And even now, I love telling this story because I like people to know that what you think about him is actually true.